Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'd like to call the August 25th, 2025 Housing Authority regular, regular meeting to order. Excuse me. I'm good. Members of the public. Yeah, let me do that. Excuse me. As a matter of housekeeping, I'd like to remind commissioners to keep their microphones muted unless they are speaking. The City of Santa Rosa is committed to creating a safe and inclusive environment free from disruption. We will not tolerate any hateful speech or actions and are well staffed to monitor that everyone is participating respectfully or they will be removed. If necessary, we will also immediately end the meeting. Clerk, please explain how public comments will be heard at today's meeting.
After each agenda item, the chair will ask for Housing Authority Commissioner comments and then we'll open the item for public comment. Once the chair calls for public comment, please go to the closest podium in the upper tier of the chambers. The clerk will unmute your microphone and start the timer. Speakers are allowed to speak one time per item up to 3 minutes. Additionally, there is one public comment period to speak on non-agenda matters, item 6. This is the time when any person may address the Housing Authority on matters not listed on this agenda but which are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Housing Authority. To address the Housing Authority, you are requested to complete a speaker card and give it to the recording secretary.
Thank you, Clerk. Clerk, have we been notified of any commissioners who have requested to participate remotely?
No, we have not.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to roll call. Before I ask the clerk to do a roll call for attendance to assist with streaming the meeting and capturing commissioners as they are speaking, I want to continue to remind commissioners to please ask the chair to be recognized before asking a question or making a comment. This will allow time for the cameras to shift to a new speaker. Clerk, would you please do a roll call?
Commissioner Wimmer? Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Owen?
Here.
Commissioner Conti?
Here.
Commissioner Capio?
Here.
Vice Chair Downey?
Here.
And Chair Newton is absent, so let the record reflect that all are present, with the exception of Chair Newton.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 4, which is statements of abstention. Are there any items that any commissioners need to abstain? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is a study session. And note that there are no study sessions items on this agenda, which moves us to item 6, which is public comments on non-agenda items. Comments from the public will be allowed on all agenda items at times of each item is called. This is time when any person may address the Housing Authority in matters not listed on the agenda, but which are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Housing Authority. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes. To address the Housing Authority, you are requested to complete an orange speaker card and give it to the recording secretary.
Good afternoon. I'm glad
I got a card turned in.
So we're going to start with Dwayne, and then we'll go ahead and take you next, okay?
Thank
Let me
you
go ahead and
kindly.
start the timer.
Hello, my name is Dwayne DeWitt. I'm from Roseland. I'm also a founding member of the Sonoma County Housing Advocacy Group. Been coming to these meetings for over 30 years now, always advocating that we try to get more affordable residential rental housing. I wanted to thank some of the commissioners for responding to me in the past, and today I wanted to, warn you, share some information with you that's not good for veterans. The New York Times has published an article pointing out that the current leader of our federal government, the approach to homelessness may sweep up veterans in what they're doing now. Midway through his first term, The top Veterans Affairs officials hailed extraordinary achievement at the time because the government housing program had reduced homelessness among veterans by nearly 1/2 since 2010, utilizing the HUD-VASH voucher program. It provided veterans with housing vouchers and case management. They chip in 1/3 of the income they have to be able to move forward, and it was working well. One of the dilemmas, though, is that, especially in communities where there's not enough affordable rental residential housing, it was not getting veterans into housing as well as we would like. Now, unfortunately, the new administration, in an executive order issued late last month, instructed government agencies to stop funding Housing First programs. And the order said deprioritize accountability and fail to promote treatment, recovery, and self-sufficiency. That's why they're getting rid of Housing First programs. But they do help veterans. And I'm hoping that you here, as the keeper of the keys, if you will, for Housing First and HUD-VASH vouchers in Sonoma County, will make your own finding and do your own approach on how you're going to continue to do the positive things you do. I notice on today's agenda, Burbank Housing is here. We took some veterans to Burbank Housing and asked about getting into their projects that get project-based vouchers. The receptionist didn't know anything about it and was unable to help the veterans. Basically, somebody from staff has told me in the past, well, we let the project developers do things. I've had other people tell me the developer chooses how they want to get the vouchers out. Please, Housing Authority, make Housing First and HUD-VASH vouchers a priority and get veterans into housing first. Work with those developers and make sure they're at the first of the line. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dwayne. You may begin.
Thank you. Hello. Janice Carmen, and I second what Dwayne said. The veterans' housing is really important, and I've sat in on supervisory meetings where they've actually closed mortgages on properties for veterans in county areas. And I ran for city council in the general election, and in doing so, I learned a lot of extra information that I hadn't planned on about the city, and I thought the city was really in trouble. And I've since kind of effectively been going to as many meetings as I can and trying to discover where are the issues, looking at it as I would a company or a corporation. And win some, lose some. The reason why I'm here today, and I am interested in housing, and I think it's first and foremost for most of the issues in Santa Rosa and in the county. But that said, I'm getting difficulty with the manager's office trying to get agendas and trying to get, originally it started, I was trying to get a copy of the budget. Last year I had no problem, even with the county, getting a copy of the budget, no problem. The city has not responded when I've written letters. This is very odd to me. How can you run a city when you don't even respond? Moving forward, I came in yesterday and I was looking for for an agenda for a meeting I hadn't been to. I don't know, forget what it was. But anyway, I was looking for an agenda, and I got very snarky treatment from one of the people that work there. I'm a taxpayer, and I don't pull my weight all that often, but I look at myself as being the boss. And I think people, when I courteously request an agenda, should be willing to get it for me. It was a 2-page agenda, and I got very nasty comments. I got comments that they were closed. The door was open. As long as the door is open, I think city services are open. There were 2 people available. One just stood there and looked at her talking to me the way she was talking to me. And this is not right. There should be agendas available, and also, for example, on today's agenda, which I'm happy that Dwayne had an extra one because there were none at the table at the top. And today's agenda has, I don't know, about 8 or 10 items. Those items are multiple pages, and to try to get those somewhere, she told me to go to the library yesterday and get it. Go to the library, she says.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but your 3 minutes is...
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This isn't okay. It's not okay at all. We need better service.
Do we have any other public comment?
No, we do not.
Okay, we'll go ahead into item 7 for approval of minutes. Any commissioners have any amendments to the minutes? Hearing none, I'll move it to public comment on the minutes.
It doesn't appear that we have any public comment on the minutes.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to item 8, which is Chairman Commissioner reports. Are there any Chairman Commissioner reports for today? Hearing none, and move to public comment.
There's no need for public comment on this item.
Okay. Committee reports, same item. Are there any committee reports for today? Hearing none. If there are any public comments on this item.
There are no public comments on this item.
All right, moving to item 10, which is Executive Director reports.
Good afternoon. First, I'd like to welcome our new Housing Authority Commissioner, Scott Wimmer. Scott was appointed by the council at the beginning of August, and this is his first meeting with us today. So thank you for joining us. And then second, I'd like to call your attention to the monthly pipeline update. As with each month, you'll see that the updates are identified in red. And so the projects that we note as funded and under construction, we've added the Lance Drive housing development, which has a number of on-site affordable units. There are 34, I'm sorry, that are included in this development. And then also Britton Townhomes, which has 8 inclusionary units. And then finally on page 2, you'll notice that our West Avenue Apartments, which is a rehab project supported by the Housing Authority last year, is beginning to close on their financing, and we are looking forward to that project starting its work. So that concludes the pipeline update, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from commissioners? No, Megan, it's always helpful to see how much is being developed, and this report has always been very helpful. So open it for any public comments. I understand we have no public comments on this item. We'll move to item 11, which is report items.
So our first report item for the afternoon will be presented by Rebecca Lane, Program Specialist, and this is a request from Burbank Housing Development Corporation and Burbank Housing Neighborhood Revitalization Corporation for a conditional consolidation and extension of loans.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you, Megan, for the introduction. As Megan indicated, my name is Rebecca Lane, Program Specialist with the Department of Housing and Community Services. And today I will be presenting a request from Burbank Housing Development Corporation and Burbank Housing Neighborhood Revitalization Corporation for a conditional consolidation, extension, and modification of the loan terms for several properties, including 2862 and 2866 Apple Valley Lane, 2870 and 2874 Apple Valley Lane, Papago Court Apartments, Pollen Creek Apartments, and Olive Grove Apartments. So the reason for this request is that Burbank Housing is pursuing a tax credit and bond application to finance the rehabilitation of these 5 project sites, which will then be known as the Apple Valley Scattered Sites. So the properties, as I mentioned, include 2 units or 2 properties on Apple Valley Lane, which are sometimes referred to as baby apples. Those are 2 fourplexes on Apple Valley Lane. Pollen Creek Apartments, Papago Court Apartments, and Olive Grove Apartments. So the idea behind this request is that the 5 properties will be combined into one project site or scattered site project known as Apple Valley Scattered Sites. And this will allow the Burbank Housing Development Corporation to submit a tax-exempt bond allocation by the California Debt Limit Allocation Committee, or CDLAC, and a low-income housing tax credit application that is pursued by the California Tax Credit Allocation Committee, or CTAC. And this combined application is due shortly on September 9th of this year. So a little bit of overview on each of the properties for you here. The current project information for the first property at Baby Apples is that this was acquired and initially rehabilitated by Burbank Housing in 1997. It currently is a 4-unit property with 3 affordable units to 60% of AMI. And under this request, the property will have 4 units affordable to 60% of AMI, so we'll get 1 additional affordable unit there. The existing loan on the property is for $453,999.95 in principal, with the accrued interest that we have here is calculated through July 31st of 2025. So the total loan on the property is $594,781. The other Baby Apple property is located at 2870 and 2874 Apple Valley Lane. This was also acquired and rehabilitated by Burbank Housing in 1997. And similar to the previous Baby Apple property, there are currently 4 units with 3 affordable to 60% of AMI, and this will also increase to 4 units that are affordable to 60% of AMI. The total existing loan and interest calculated through July 31st of 2025 is $601,180.34. Papago Court Apartments was acquired and initially rehabilitated by Burbank Housing in 1997. This is located at 2820 through 2838 Papago Court and 2852 and 2860 Apple Valley Lane, multiple buildings. There are 48 units with 47 currently affordable to households between 50 and 60% of AMI. And as part of the proposed consolidation, this unit mix would update to include 1 unit at 35% of AMI and 3 units, at 30% of AMI. The existing loan and combined with the interest through July 31 of 2025 on this property is $4,478,410.60. Pollen Creek Apartments is the 4th property under this proposal, which was also acquired and rehabilitated by Burbank Housing in 1997. Pollen Creek Apartments is also multiple buildings that are located at various addresses on both Apple Valley Lane and West Steele Lane. The current unit mix is 48 units, with 47 units affordable to households between 50 and 60% of AMI. And under the proposed consolidation, Burbank Housing would update this to include one additional unit at 50% of AMI, so moving from 60% of AMI, to 50% of AMI. And the total existing loan on that property is $6,478,611. And finally, Olive Grove Apartments is the newest property in this unit mix. It says 1997. I apologize, but that is not correct. I believe it is 2001 that the property, the late 2000s, I apologize for that, that this property was constructed by Burbank Housing. This is located at 1905 through 1985 Zinfandel Avenue. There are 128 units at this property, with 126 affordable to 30%, 50%, and 60% of AMI households. And this property will include, under the proposed consolidation, one additional unit at 40% of AMI, which would be reduced from 60%. The existing loan on that property is a total, including the interest, through July 31st of 2025. That's another typo on that slide. I apologize. $7,975,229.57. Combined, the properties, the loans total $13,868,471.76 in principal balance, with an accrued interest through July 31st of 2025 of $6,259,741.62, for a total of $20,128,213.38. Under this proposal, Burbank is requesting that we extend and modify the loan terms to allow for Burbank Housing to pursue the tax credit and bonds for rehabilitation of the property as a scattered site project. And the terms of the loan would be extended through June 30th of 2083, which would be an extension on all of the loans and all of the existing regulatory agreements for various dates. So there's multiple loans on the properties right now with multiple expiration dates or deadline dates. Similar with the regulatory agreements, they're all at different dates. So we would align all of the regulatory agreements and the loan agreements with an extension date of June 30th of 2083, which is a 57-year term from the anticipated closing date in 2026. The proposed rehabilitation project, Burbank has solicited property needs assessments for all of these properties, and the proposed rehabilitation for all 5 properties totals approximately $22.9 million. And the reason that Burbank is choosing to pursue this scattered site application and pursue this in calendar year 2025 for the next application round is that in 2026, the CIDLAC funds may not include the opportunity for rehabilitation, and we don't know how competitive a future application might be for those funds. So I mentioned previously that the consolidation, extension, and modification is conditioned upon Burbank Housing's successful application for these combined funds. So if Burbank Housing's application for these funds and as a new scattered site project is not successful, then we would not go through with the proposed loan consolidation, extension, and modification. The loan modification, as I mentioned, will include new regulatory agreements with a 57-year term, and it extends the affordability of all 5 sites through June 30th of 2083. The consolidated loan of $20,128,213.38 would also begin at Burbank Housing's request, accruing interest at the applicable federal rate, or AFR, which is currently set at 3.64%. It'll have a floor of 3% in the agreement, which is what is equal to the current interest rate on the existing loans. And with that, it is recommended by the Department of Housing and Community Services that the Housing Authority, by 5 resolutions, conditionally approve a consolidation, extension, and modification to the loans for 2862 and 2866 Apple Valley Lane, 2870 and 2874 Apple Valley Lane, Papago Court, Pollen Creek, and Olive Grove Apartments to 1. Consolidate the existing loans that are secured on the 5 project sites into a single loan. 2, change the interest rate to the applicable federal rate as of the date of the execution of the consolidated loan agreement with a floor of 3%. 3, extend the loan terms for 57 years. 4, extend the term of the regulatory agreements recorded against each project site to June 30th, 2083. And 5, assign the loans and the loan agreements to Apple Valley Olive Grove LP. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I also want to note for the record and your knowledge that Burbank Housing does have a representative in the audience, and that's Jocelyn Lynn. She could use public speaking time in case there's any questions that you have directly for the project.
Thank you, Rebecca. That's a lot of material in a short amount of time. Are there any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Conti?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. First, why is the extension set at 57 years until 2083? Could we restructure it differently for future flexibility?
Burbank Housing's request was to extend the term on the loan for 57 years.
Is that common for us to do those? Or is it going to be setting a precedent for future applicants?
We generally see loan requests, and we set our loan terms at 55 years, which coincides with the regulatory agreement. So this would be 2 years beyond what we are normally seeing for loan terms.
Okay, so that's standard. Also, if the tax credit partnership defaults, what rights does the city have to step in and preserve affordability? Do we have step in or rights, and are we going to be lowered in our loan subordination?
So the Housing Authority's loan documents, which are currently recorded against these properties and would be updated with any loan consolidation, include remedies for default. And there are a variety of points in time and default activities that would allow either the Housing Authority to step in and help cure, or require the developer and their partners to cure. The regulatory agreement also would survive a loan payoff. So there are many stops along the way in the event of a default. And I'd also like to note that we have very few defaults that we've experienced, certainly in the multifamily arena. Occasionally we'll have a default for a single family home, but not in the multifamily portfolio.
Okay. Well, I know the timing's critical on this with September 9th, the deadline, but it would have been nice to see some financials showing, you know, if the applicable federal rate was for even 5%. I mean, has anybody been kind of thinking about that?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question. So you were inquiring as to if the applicable federal rate would...
I think in the information I read, it said 3%. What if it, you know, goes above that?
So if it goes, it's currently at 3.64%.
Right,
Yes,
yeah.
our standard loan
Yeah.
terms are 3%. So the Burbank Housing, because of the nature of the application that they're submitting, has requested that we set the loan terms at the applicable federal rate at the time of the new loan, which we anticipate to be in 2026, the loan closing. So we won't know today what that interest rate will be, but it will have a floor of 3%, so it will not go lower than our current loan terms.
Okay, and that probably explains why the numbers were a little bit different in your report and their request. I think it was like 20 million point 3 for them, and ours was like 20.1.
Yes, I know what you're talking about in their request letter. The difference between our chart that we would submit as part of our exhibit to the support for the application, our interest was calculated through July 31st of 2025, our most recent period. And in their request letter, Burbank Housing had projected the calculation of the current interest through September of 2025. So that explains the difference between their request, which was included in the packet, and our staff report.
Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith?
Excuse me. I just want to get a better understanding on the finances. All these loans, Burbank Housing's been making payments. I don't understand when you show the principal balance and then the accrued interest. So maybe you can explain to me what the accrued interest, how that works, first of all. Thank you.
So the way the Housing Authority loans are structured is they are generally 3% simple interest based on residual receipts. So if the project is generating income, they would be required to pay a portion of that income to the Housing Authority as an annual loan payment. And that depends on the lien priority. So if the state of California was in front of us, they would get to take their percentage of proceeds first. When we receive a payment of residual receipts, it is applied first to accrued interest. So every year the loan is in place, whatever that amount is generating 3% interest that's then applied to the loan. So any payment would go first towards interest, and then if they have paid off the interest, then we would apply it to principal.
So have they been making payments regularly over the years to bring the principal down and the interest down? I'm just trying to understand. We're getting all this real quickly again.
So all of the loans that the Housing Authority has in its portfolio require a submittal of an annual audited statement. And so that's where for each project, outside auditors go through and verify the revenue and expenditures and determine if there is any surplus income. Oftentimes there's not surplus income, and so no payments would be required at that point. But if there is surplus income, then they would be required to make a payment. So it's hard to say over the course of time with some of these loans being 20 plus years old if they have made payments on a regular basis. But part of the rationale for this is these properties do need a lot of work because they haven't had robust income, and we need to look for investment in those properties.
One more comment. I don't know if it was last year or earlier this year. I thought it was Burbank Housing, and if it's not, I apologize. But I thought you guys came to us for another last-minute request, and I'm sure we'll go through this again to help you out. You've been good, but, at least since we only meet once a month, and it's on the fourth Monday, it would be nice if it was the previous month, just so we can think about it. Just if you would the same group that did that previously. Thank you.
Commissioner Capio?
So I just wanted to confirm that the condition regarding Burbank's getting money from the state includes both the tax-exempt bonds and the tax credits. So if they get one and then the other, or they only get one and not the other, what happens?
The resolutions are all conditional upon Burbank receiving the funds that they're applying for in
So
September.
both
Yes.
sources? Okay.
Yeah, and if you want to refer to the resolutions, it should
Okay.
appear in all 5 resolutions as number 1 in the final conditions that says the consolidation of loans will only occur if the scattered site project is awarded tax-exempt bonds and tax credits.
And the tax credits, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then, this is a really difficult question because this is important housing. It has got a low level or high level of affordability. But there, 100K a unit, I think, this is about 100K a unit for the rehabilitation and renovation. When the report indicates that it's pretty bad, there's air conditioning, structural, siding, improvements to power and plumbing systems. Is that enough money? Have we evaluated that?
We did receive property needs assessments that were dated in 2024 and in 2025 for these properties, and the critical rehabilitation needs were identified as well, and that is what came in at approximately $100,000 per unit. This varies across the properties. The oldest properties need the most rehabilitation, and this is part of the rationale on Burbank's part for including Olive Grove in the scattered site project, because that's the newest property and it needs the least amount of rehabilitation at this point. So to try to leverage some of the value in Olive Grove to the other properties is part of the rationale. And I would also invite, if Jocelyn wants to expand on that answer in her public comment, she could do that as well.
Thank you. And my last question is, when does a loan not become a loan? I mean, this is a big term that we're giving, a big extension. Is there any legal or other philosophical kind of cap on this? Because it seems like it's turning into a grant.
Good afternoon. So I can't speak to the philosophical, but as to the legal, I did notice the 57 years, and it is not an amount of years that we see all the time. But I did not find any legal barrier to this loan time period. So there are other places in the law where you run into maximum lease terms, for example, at 55 years without some additional barriers in place, but leases, for example, can go all the way up to 99 years. So it's not unheard of to have these very long terms. And as far as for loans like these, no legal barrier that I could find. So as these folks have said, I think the timelines are getting stretched out here, and they're becoming more and more common. And no reason not to say yes unless you see a philosophical one. And again,
Sure.
that's beyond my purview.
Right. Thank you for that answer. And it's certainly important to note that this is outside the regular market and transaction, right? It doesn't follow commercially acceptable standards or practices because of what it is. So I fully confirm that this is an important thing to do.
If I could just also tag on to Autumn's comments, and just one more factor that differentiates this from a grant is that we do have repayment requirements built into the note, like we talked about with residual receipts. So even though we're extending the term another 57 years, that's based on the submittal of audited financial statements on an annual basis, and then require any surplus cash to be repaid to the Housing Authority.
Commissioner Downey?
Ask if there was a separate pool for rehab versus loaning from the ground up? Or are they all coming from the same pool, and it just depends upon who gets an application in first?
So I think there's two different factors in your question. One, in this particular request, these are existing loans. They're not asking for new money from us. They're asking us to extend the term and adjust the interest rate on the existing loans in the project to allow them to pursue outside funding sources in the form of tax credits and bonds to conduct the rehab work. And then the second would be in our annual notice of funding availability process, we do carve out or prioritize rehab projects because we have seen so many new construction projects within the last 5 to 7 years. So through our funding cycle, we are separating rehab out and prioritizing that as a community need. And that's for new money to be put into projects to conduct rehabilitation. So again, no additional money is going into this project. It is for an extension of the loan term and to adjust the interest rates.
Commissioner Conti?
Yeah, I mean, I know our job isn't to make profits on these loans. It's to preserve affordable housing. And this looks like a really good deal to, to secure these 232 homes. But on the other side, Burbank Housing is carrying a lot of liability and negative equity right now, as I think we all are. But, I mean, I worry about the little details like the Olive Garden, and if somebody could speak to if we lose some of it loses some of its equity and something like this a little bit. May not matter, but I'm just curious as to whether we're looking at the long term, because I still am concerned with that need for the 57 years and allowing for flexible future flexibility in renegotiating these terms down the line. Anyways, maybe hear a little bit about that. Thanks.
So the property also had appraisals done in 2024. So the current value of the property, I believe, and Jocelyn during her public comment could correct me if I am wrong, but they assessed at $42.2 million. So the combined value of the properties, at least in 2024, is higher than the amount of rehabilitation that they require. It's just a matter of them securing the funding to do that rehab work.
Any other questions from commissioners? So on a couple items here, first of all, the regulatory agreements to go along with the tax-exempt bonds and the tax credits are 55 years.
The regulatory agreements would be extended to align with the extension on the loan term, so both would be an extension through 57 years. So that date is June 30th of 2083.
I understand, but my understanding is that from the state process, either going for tax credits or tax-exempt bonds, you have a regulatory agreement that requires the property to stay affordable for a term of 55 years. And then usually the financing associated beyond the tax credits or tax-exempt bonds matches that. So is the state driving the 55 or 55 or 57, or is what we're talking about driving that term?
So you're correct. The state generally requires 55 years. The 57 originated from Burbank's request for 2 additional years.
Okay. And then I'm having trouble looking at this. So the $20 million that exists today, that's just city debt on these 5 properties?
The total of the 20 million is including the principal and the interest.
But
The
that's
accrued
just city
interest.
debt.
Correct.
Correct. Those are loans that have been provided by the Housing Authority over the course of these 5 projects.
And then the existing debt is junior to any debt from banks, or do we know what that dollar amount is? So I'm trying to drive to what the existing debt is on these 232 units.
I don't think we have a summary of debt for all the projects with us today.
And
But
then
we
what-
certainly do have, then we could return with that information.
And then I'm looking at slide 10, it says proposed rehab hard cost is 22.9 million. Is that all inclusive, or does that include soft costs associated, such as building permits, the financing costs associated with this? What is the total cost for rehab?
I will ask Jocelyn to include that in her public comment.
Okay. Because if we're looking at this, the existing debt of 20 million on 232 units, I came up with about $86,000 a unit, which is very low. But without knowing what the debt is senior to the existing debt, it's hard to understand and know what the cash flow is on all 232 units to see if there's at $86,000 a unit. When we look at brand new projects and that's the debt piece existing, new projects are $750,000 to $1 million a unit. So if assuming that the rent that can be charged for 1 bedroom are all at fair market rent, even though these units need some work, I don't know if they're being charged a fair market rent, but that would tell me with simple math that there's cash flow off these properties to pay down the residual debt. I mean the residual interest. And not knowing if there have been any payments made on these 5 properties is concerning, because we should know if there's been any payments made in the past. Because now we're looking at money and as Commissioner Conti stated, we're not looking to make a profit. It's not about a profit. It's about returning these monies so they can be redeployed for more units. That is the concern. So understanding whether or not there's money coming in on a residual basis that can be redeployed in annual NOVAs would be helpful. Also, by adding more debt, where if the units are 100% leased, I'm going to make that assumption, and the rents, because there are caps in what you can charge for these affordable units, that number won't go up. So we're adding more debt without an increase in revenue, which then could cause a restriction if any residual payments can be made on this debt. So I would like to know if there's any residual payments made now, and in the proposal going forward with added debt, without much of a likelihood of an increased revenue, if there's residual receipts available to pay what we're talking about right now, the existing debt amount. The other question I have is that it's at 3.63. We have a floor, which tells me that's an adjustable rate. How often is that adjusted? Is the rate adjusted?
I believe it was a monthly adjustment, but I'll have to double check and get back to you.
So I mean, it's a lot of information. It's 5 different projects. I understand the need to consolidate, because when you have 4 units, it's hard to do affordable housing projects with just 4 units. So you consolidate them to make it have enough breadth to it to make it work and underwrite. Are we looking at the tax credits? Are they 4% tax credits? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So, but without understanding where we are today on a consolidated basis, if there's any residual rents coming back to replenish the money that's gone out so it can be redeployed, and what it's going to be going forward, it's kind of difficult to make an understanding or make a decision on this without that understanding. Units probably at this age need help. They probably need to be rehabilitated. The amount of work that needs to be done at a 100K unit, as Commissioner Capio stated, might be light, but that's what the engineers are for to determine. But if we don't have an understanding if there's any money coming back on this, on this consolidation with the added debt to know if there's money coming back, not to make a profit, but to redeploy from additional units.
So if I may answer one of your questions, for residual receipts, Olive Grove has been making residual receipt payments. That's the only one of the 5 projects that is cash flowing currently, and part of the basis for its inclusion in the scattered site project. So in 2024, the surplus cash to the authority for Olive Grove was over $100,000.
So that one project put a $100,000 payment back to the city for residuals?
Correct.
Okay. I would just, if we look at one of these again, I would love to see sources and uses on cash flow to see what's going to happen where we are now, what the senior debt is today, what the additional debt, which there has to be more because we're doing rehab. So we're going behind, we're going to subordinate to additional debt, have an understanding of if there's any residual payments, cash flow today, and what that will look like going forward. I know when you're going in for tax credits and tax exempt bonds, you have to have that information to know whether or not any residual payments. So I know that we're adding a couple of additional affordable units. I'm going to make the assumption that the 4-unit projects are 3 affordable with 1 not, because that's a manager's unit, and if you can consolidate, you probably don't need to have a manager's unit. So that's nice that we're putting that in there. But we're losing, from what I can tell just briefly, $100,000 a year that we can redeploy to additional units by agreeing to do this. I just want to have an understanding of the math. I'm not making a conclusion on a resolution because we're not there yet. Maybe the representative from Burbank Housing can address some of these issues. So are there any comments from commissioners? Commissioner Conti?
Yeah, I mean, it's great that we're trying to qualify, Burbank's trying to qualify for the state funds. But I'm just wondering what happens in general, what happens to projects if Burbank defaults on the loan? What happens in the case of the properties themselves?
So none of these projects are at risk of default currently. I just want to set everybody straight on that. We would need to go through whatever that process is and see the lien position of the housing authority versus who's ahead of us, and then work through that process. So it depends. But I think the real concern, if they don't apply for the tax credits and bonds, is the condition of the unit and the ability to provide the secured affordable housing to the community.
Another one. Trust you guys on. Thanks.
Any other comments from commissioners? Hearing none, we'll open to public comment.
Let me go ahead and get the timer ready, and then you can go.
Hello, commissioners. Good afternoon. My name is Jocelyn Lynn, and I'm with Burbank Housing, and I'm happy to answer the questions. I've been busy taking notes, and so wanted to get to everyone's questions. So, first of all, I wanted to address the whole 55-year, why 55 years for this loan. It is because the tax credit period is 55 years. It's the TCAC regulatory agreement requires that the home be affordable for a 55-year period, which is why we have our soft loans also align with that as well. And since the regulatory agreement for the loan is 55 years, we were also requesting that the loans and the term would also be 55 years. And the reason we requested 57 is because we will be closing on these loans at construction, at the start of construction, and it takes 1 to 2 years to, complete construction. And so and the tax credit period technically doesn't start until you complete the project, which is why we tacked on the 2 additional years, if, any of you had that question. And also, one of the things to talk about when we talk about, these loans is that they are not commercial loans. They are soft loans. And, affordable housing does require us to rely on, these kinds of public subsidies. And it is a subsidy to have this as a soft loan and not as like a hard loan with required annual or regular debt service. And so, this is something that, we appreciate when we work with cities, counties, and, the state of California on these types of loans. We do the best we can to, have these projects cash flow as healthily as we can so that we can make those residual receipts payments. But, with projects like this that are in need of substantial rehab, it's sometimes hard to have those when we're using our maintenance reserve to, pay for ongoing costs. Something else I wanted to address was AFR. The reason we chose AFR is because tax credit TCAC requires that loans be no lower than AFR. Right now, the AFR is higher than 3%, which is what these current loans are, and so that's why we adjusted it to the AFR. The other question you have is on budget. So, our construction costs do average $100K per unit, but that's because we are able to, some units require, double that amount, and some require a minimal amount, such as our Olive Grove units. And so on average, we're averaging out to $100K per unit. So it is really important for us to have Olive Grove as part of the scattered sites because it does help cross-subsidize for, this project. Total TDC is, I believe I just asked our project manager, 88 million for total development costs. So that comes out to 380,000 per unit for total development costs. So it is a lot less than new construction. The other question is HCD. We do have HCD loans on this property, but we are planning to have that restructured through HCD's formal loan restructuring program. And I don't have the amounts on those or or the details on those, but I'm happy to do some research and come back to you with that. And I have more to say, but I'm out of time.
Just a point of order for the chair. The chair can certainly authorize more time for answering of questions if that's appropriate here.
I would like to allow you more time because this is a complicated issue with 5 different, so please go ahead. We appreciate that.
So the other thing I wanted to address was that, Commissioner Conte, you mentioned the concern about, if Burbank defaults or what if, equity partners fall out. These projects are, very, very carefully, reviewed. Our investors do their due diligence, their underwriting. They look at the appraised values, of this property. So they wouldn't, invest in our project unless they believe that, it would be sustainable for the long term. So we don't expect, any kind of problems in the future in terms of defaults or anything like that. The other question, Commissioner Downey, you had a question about, separate pool for rehab. So even though we're not applying for new money from the city, I will let you know that when we apply for tax credits and tax-exempt bonds, there is a separate pool under TCAC and SIDLAC for rehab. So we are applying in their rehab pool. And I think that's it. Oh, one thing I want to note is that, yes, residual receipts payments on this property, because especially Papago and pollen and baby apples have such high needs right now, we aren't seeing the kind of cash flow that we need, because we're using a lot of our replacement reserve, our maintenance reserves to, fix ongoing issues in the units so that they're livable for the residents. But we think, after the rehab, there will be healthier cash flow, so we do hope to make those residual receipts payments in the future. And I'm happy to stay up here too if you have more questions.
Any of the commissioners have, Commissioner Conte?
This is more of a comment than a question, but Commissioner Andrew Smith and I visited one of Burbank's properties last year, and one of the big discussions was rehab. And I think we both were really impressed with the amount of time and effort that Burbank puts into really maintaining their properties. That was a big plus for me.
Thank you.
Any other questions? One quick question. Are all these units 100% leased, excluding turnover?
I believe they are fully leased. Yes, they are fully leased. We aren't holding any units as of now as vacant units because once we do the rehab, we start holding certain units so that we can do so residents can temporarily relocate on site rather than off site. But I believe it is all fully leased, yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Smith?
So as I understand it, we have to make a decision today, vote on this. Is that correct?
I can address the issue on timing. So we are going to be applying on September 9th, which is in a couple weeks, to submit our TCAC application. And one of the items in order for us to be effective in this application is to show a commitment of these city loans as having been modified and extended. If we don't have that commitment, it means we'll lose points in the scoring in terms of having all your financing secured.
Commissioner Conti?
A quick question for you. What happens to the residents when the units are being remodeled?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a relocation plan, and we hire a relocation consultant to help residents. What we do is we temporarily relocate them to units on site that are vacant that we hold, so that way they don't have to leave, the site. Sometimes we do off-site relocation, like in a hotel room or something like that. But we're hoping and planning to do it all on site. And then the rehab generally takes like 2 to 3 months, sometimes less. And once we've completed with the rehab, then they can move back into their units.
Commissioner Smith, you had a question?
Just a comment, Megan, will this project get on your pipeline under the rehab group and everything? That's really nice to see and track.
If the project is awarded tax credits and bonds, we would advance it to the projects that are being rehabbed and awaiting financing.
Not seeing any other questions on this. We have a resolution on this. Is there a proposal for the resolution?
Chair Owen, I just want to make sure for the record that there were no other public comments. I don't think
I'm sorry. Are there any other public comments?
It does not appear that there are any other public comments on this item.
Thank you. So is there a motion for one of the commissioners?
I'll motion.
We have a second? Use your mic.
Second.
Thank you. Now, we have 5 resolutions in front of us. I asked General Counsel if we can address all 5 at one time, and we can do that from a legal standpoint because even though they're all very, very similar, they're just different names and numbers. Are we okay? Is anybody have an opposition to doing all 5 at one time? Okay, thank you. So, Clerk, if you can call a vote, and again, this is for all 5 resolutions in one vote.
So, Commissioner Wimmer? Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Owen?
Aye.
Commissioner Conti?
Aye.
Commissioner Capio?
Aye.
Vice Chair Downey?
Aye.
And Chair Newton is absent. So let the record reflect that all 5 motions pass with all members saying aye and 1 person being absent, Chair Newton.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 11.2.
Item 11.2 will also be presented by Rebecca Lane, and this is a change to the targeted unit mix on a prior award for West Avenue Apartments.
Thank you, Megan, and good afternoon again, commissioners. This is a simpler, I hope, item regarding West Avenue Apartments. So West Avenue Apartments is requesting, or we are requesting, a change for the targeted unit mix on a prior award of Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG funds, for West Avenue Apartments. West Avenue Apartments is an existing 40-unit multifamily affordable project owned and managed by Burbank Housing. Last year, in the fiscal year 2024-2025 notice of funding availability, the Housing Authority awarded $1 million in Community Development Block Grant CDBG funds for rehabilitation of the property, and West Avenue also pursued other financing for the rehabilitation of this property. They did receive, BHDC, Burbank Housing did receive rehabilitation funds from the Department of Housing and Community Development, the State Department of Housing and Community Development, under the Portfolio Reinvestment Program, or PRP. And HCD is requiring a minor update to the affordability mix in the project in order to align with the PRP fund requirements. And the updated affordability mix in the project will be more favorable, adding one additional unit at a lower AMI. So just to break that down, the current affordability mix that was approved last year under the NOFA is 9 units at 30% of AMI, 1 unit at 50% of AMI, and 29 units at 60% of AMI. And the new affordability mix would be 9 units at 30% of AMI, 2 units at 50% of AMI, and 28 units at 60% of AMI. And because the Housing Authority resolution was required the unit mix listed at the top of the slide, and the affordability mix needs to be updated, it does also need to be approved by the Housing Authority. So it is recommended by the Housing and Community Services Department that the Housing Authority, by resolution, approve a change to the targeted affordable unit mix for West Avenue Apartments identified in resolution number 1783, dated October 28, 2024, to align the targeted affordable unit mix with the requirements of the state funding sources supporting West Avenue Apartments. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. This one definitely is easier. Do any commissioners have any questions? One quick one. So what's driving this is HCD funding?
Correct. The Portfolio Reinvestment Program.
And not to disappoint, because I'm such a numbers person, if we go from 60% to 50% for a one-person household, what is that roughly in terms of income drop annually?
I need a moment.
We can look that up.
5,000?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I'll have it to you momentarily. So if you want to do another question, and I'll swing back around.
It's just, we toss around AMI numbers all the time, but it's always kind of nice to know what that translates to someone's income. Any other questions? We won't play Jeopardy music while Megan is trying to look this.
Okay, so just for ease of numbers, we'll do a one-person household. So currently in the 2025 income limits, a one-person household at 60% of AMI is $63,420, and a 50% household is $52,850. So it's about $11,000 less.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Hearing no other questions, we'll open this item for public comment.
It doesn't appear that we have any public comment on this item.
Thank you. We do have a resolution to go with this item. Is there any commissioner that would like to move on the resolution?
I would like to motion to waive the reading of the text and to approve the change to targeted unit mix on prior award of Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, funds for West Avenue Apartments.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Conti. Clerk, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Chair Owen, I apologize. Before we do that, another commissioner did raise the issue of a scrivener's error in this resolution, I believe, and I just want to make sure that it is corrected for the record. The number 9 in that resolution is, the number 9 appears but is spelled as none, and so we will correct that. I assume we don't have any objection to correcting that scrivener's error.
No objections to.
Okay.
I appreciate people that read better than I do. So thank you for that. And we'll go for a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Wimmer,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Owen,
Aye.
Commissioner Conti,
Aye.
Commissioner Capio,
Aye.
Vice Chair Downey.
Aye.
And Chair Newton is absent, so let the record reflect that that motion passes with 6 ayes and 1 person being absent, Chair Newton.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move to item 12, which is adjournment. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.